In a medieval village, there was a man who was a beggar. And on this one particular day, he went door to door asking for some cornmeal that he would be able to grind it down at the end of the day and make a little cake for himself. But this particular day, he went door to door to all of his neighbors and friends, and there was no one giving anything to him. So he was feeling rather down. He was walking on the side of the road, and he saw a carriage, big fancy carriage pulling up. He realized that it was the king, so he got all excited. He thought, oh, this is going to be my lucky day, because I'll ask the king for something to eat, some cornmeal or something, and I'm sure he'll give me enough for the whole week. So the carriage stopped. The man got very excited. The window came down. The beggar got more excited. And then he said, before he could even get out his words asking for some cornmeal or for something in order to eat, instead the king looked at him in the eye and said, "Can you give me some of your cornmeal?" So that was a little bit different for the beggar man. He said, well, he didn't really know what to do. He looked into his bag and he took the smallest piece that he could find out of the bag, the smallest little grain, because he didn't want to give up a whole lot. So he said, I'm just going to give him just a little bit. So he took it out and he gave it to the king. And then the carriage rolled off, and he didn't get anything. He was feeling kind of defeated, deflated, and he was disappointed. So the rest of the day, he continued to beg, still had nothing. But that night when he went back home, and he just had a little bit of cornmeal in there, and he poured it out there onto his table, and lo and behold, miraculously, there was this very small piece of gold in there in the bag. To which the guy suddenly realized, the beggar man realized, wow, if only I had given the king all that I had, I would have gotten it all back in gold. But I gave him only a small piece, and all that changed in my life was just one little small piece of grain becoming a small piece of gold. There's a moral of this story, and that is that we have to be able to ask people for something in order to receive. We have to be generous in our gift of sharing. And for this beggar man, he was kind of cheap. Because he only gave a little bit, he received miraculously back just a little bit. Our gospel reading today speaks of Jesus not necessarily right away giving something to this woman at the well, but rather he's asking her for something. That in the gift of relationship and developing a relationship with her, he doesn't just right away tell her all that she's done in her life, go right away tell her all that she's wrong with in her sinfulness, but rather he asked her for a drink of water. He made her feel good about who she was. See, by sometimes giving, even those who are in poverty, there is an ability and a chance to challenge. And when we challenge, we allow people not to find out what the best that we have to give, but we give them the opportunity to realize the best that they have to give. And for the woman at the well, she had a lot to offer. She really gave Jesus a lot of material to work with. And he took advantage of that opportunity because he realized it was a moment of evangelization. By asking her for that drink of water, they got into a dialogue. And then he was able to speak to her on a deeper level. And that's where Jesus does the best work. If you notice in a few other places in the Gospels, whenever some great miracles happened, and really this is kind of miraculous that this woman who was an incredible sinner, a Samaritan, someone who was kind of cast aside by the rest of her community, Jesus revealed himself to her. Of all of the people that he could have revealed himself to, he reveals himself to her, someone who was considered an outcast from the rest of their community. But he chose that moment to be able to do that. Just as in the other times when he wanted to do something great, he didn't just give it to everybody, but he asked for something. He asked to have the jars filled with water so that he could change it into wine at the wedding at Cana. He asked for some bread or some fish so that he would be able to multiply it in order to feed the 5,000. And here he's asking something of this woman. Instead of just giving it right to her, there was no handout there. It was asking her for something so that she would feel that she had an investment in the gift and the life of faith. And by doing so, we don't know how many graces were multiplied in her own life. I don't know if you've ever taken the opportunity to see, but one of the bronze plaques in our church, I like to point out certain things. One of the bronze plaques in the church in the back, you probably never paid attention to it. It has very poor lighting on it. We'd like to change it, so that's one of the projects for the future. But you can't really see even what it is. It's the woman at the well. It's very beautiful to just take an opportunity, maybe one day on the way out of church, just stop by there, get a picture of what this was like. Also today in the gospel reading, we heard about the well that was on a plot of land that was given to Joseph from his father Jacob. And that is Joseph represented up with the coat of many colors. It's the same Joseph. So a lot of connections kind of happen, and it's connections for us because these people are our ancestors. They're our people that have gone before us, marked with the sign of faith. But today in this particular story, we hear about conversion. We hear how Jesus gives the gift of water. He gives her an entree into a whole new life because of that water that he had to drink, which was living water. There's symbolism here, and the symbolism is that of baptism. So today we celebrate with those who are going to be coming into our church at the Easter Vigil. And we have a group that will be baptized that night. A few weeks ago, we had a group who came into the church. They converted. They received full communion because they were already baptized in the Christian faith, another denomination. And so they came in order to be confirmed and receive their communion. That happened at a 5 o'clock Mass a few weeks ago. And so now we're preparing those who will be baptized at Easter with what we call the scrutinies. It's an ancient rite, actually, because it's happened since the beginning of the early church. Those who expressed their desire to become Catholic, they were able to stand before the community and they were asked questions. It sounds awful, but they were scrutinized. We're not going to do that to you today, okay? We're not going to scrutinize you. Rather, we pray with you. We pray over you. We give you that opportunity to feel welcomed into the beauty of our community here at Annunciation. So this week, we're doing it at the 10. 1 week it's at the 5, 1 week, or the 8. 1 week it's at the noon Mass. So we kind of move it around. And there's different symbols. Today's symbol is water because of baptism. Next week at the 8 o'clock Mass, I believe, it's the symbol of light, the blind man. And then the third week in the scrutiny is the symbol of life, and it's the raising of Lazarus. So know that we pray for you, those who are in conversion here, into the gift of the church. And we're praying for you that just as Jesus offered himself to the woman at the well, just as he asked her for something, he started conversation. In your conversion, he also started a conversation. At some point, he invited you. He may not have said, "Give me a drink," but he said, "Come to me. Be a part more of a community. Learn about the gift of faith." And you said yes. So we rejoice with you that the Lord opened the door. He may have knocked very gently on it. He may have beat it down in order to get into your life. But what we do know is that God is present to us. Sometimes those of us who were baptized as infants, we miss out on some of that. We don't always have that adult conversion, or a conversion of a time when we're after the age of 7. We have to speak for ourselves. So it's good for us to witness those who are coming into the faith in a little bit older years, that we can celebrate with them and celebrate the gift of their yes.